This is a story about a young man named Ricardo. Young Ricardo is walking home from a frat party. He is 20 years old, studying neuroscience in school, working 8 hours a week in Professor Zimmerman's lab during the weekdays, and working for another 12 hours in Trader Joe's. He feels successful. His roommate Navin thinks he is successful too. During the frat party, a brunette girl named Linda thought she fell in love with Ricardo because he was that successful. But is he happy? He looks happy. He can brag to his roommate Navin all day that he's happy. He can literally brag about anything. He can brag about his party just now, having taken 4 shots with his frat big Halvar, and he was definitely the most popular one there. He can also brag about his lab. His professor, Otto Zimmerman, just discovered a new Alzheimer drug using chiral enantiomers to fix intrinsically disordered amyloid proteins in human brains. He can even brag about his new promotion to section leader at Trader Joe's. Yet, there has always been something missing. He doesn't feel like his human interactions are real anymore. Apart from talking to his coworkers while labeling the diethyl ether solutions, he spends most of his time socializing with his frat. Those people seem to care about him, but Ricardo realizes he has never hung with them sober. In fact, the only person that he can truly speak his heart to is actually in front of him. But when Navin starts to talk about his depression, Ricardo knows that he's not the only one suffering. His roommate psychiatrist, Dr. Velasquez, has doubled Navin's antidepressant dose since he broke up with his girlfriend Neha. He used to take 15 milligrams of mirtazapine, and that made him sleepy. Now, he has to take 30 milligrams, and he feels extremely sedated. Navin had his first serious relationship when he was in his home country, Pakistan, but the long-distance relationship only lasted 2 months after he moved to the US for the engineering program. Navin used to see her face every day, but what he sees every day now are just a bunch of cheap transistors. Every day he'd use the words love, together, future, but what he talks about now are logic gates, intermodulation, and transconductance. Empathizing with his housemate, Ricardo tells Navin to take shrooms with him the next day. They would go to the park and just lie down on the grass and chill. Navin has never done any drugs, and so he feels very indecisive. But Ricardo reassures him that he too has never tried anything but weed. Ricardo uses his knowledge about neuroscience to assuage Navin. He tells him that psilocybin is simply a serotonergic stimulant, and based on the report Acute Toxicity of Drugs versus Regulatory Status, RS Gamble 2006, psilocybin actually ranks lowest in both toxicity and dependence of all common drugs. Ricardo hopes that he can use this opportunity to reconsider what is most important in life. He also hopes that the trip will help his housemate Navin's depression. The next morning, after dropping approximately 2.5 grams of shrooms, Ricardo goes to the kitchen and tries to tell Navin the correct dosage. But to his surprise, Navin had already taken 5 grams without telling him. Instead of freaking out right away, Ricardo remains calm so that at least Navin will have a good time. As Navin is nervous about going out in public on drugs, Ricardo has an idea. Recently, he'd quit the local fencing club because the captain, Achilleos Papadopoulos, had personal problems with him. But he kept his mask, and now it was time for it to shine. The mask is old and smells like spray paint, but Navin's in a silly mood. He doesn't care. He wonders if the shrooms make him feel like he's 12 again. In fact, it's actually the first time Navin has gone out in 2 months besides school. Ricardo brings a surprise for his friend Navin, a sketchbook. Ricardo always heard great stories about drawing on psychedelics from his friends, but he wants to use Navin as the guinea pig first. When they arrive at the park, everything is so peaceful. There are kids playing on the seesaw in the distance. Ricardo reminds Navin about the sketchbook, and he takes it gracefully. Navin is told to draw anything that comes into his mind. He first thinks about a transistor. Does he know how to draw a transistor? Surely that's easy. A head, and the 3 cables beneath it, the emitter, the base, and the collector. But he's no art major, and Ricardo is quick to let him know that his transistor looks like a dick. Acknowledging that fact to himself, Navin starts to draw veins and pubic hairs to his transistor, just as Ricardo suggests. Is Navin a dick person? He doesn't care. A detailedly depicted human penis is still a piece of psychedelic art, or at least an anatomical approximation. Putting his improvised masterpiece down, Navin asks Ricardo about the meaning of the universe and the purpose of life. Under the effect of psilocin derived by the psilocybin he took that morning, Ricardo starts to trip.
He sees God. God is a spoiled kid who one day happens to inherit a bunch of energy from a void. Therefore, God created the sandbox simulator, which is our universe, full of matters and creatures that are either entropy generators themselves or are slaves to making entropy generators. Energy is the currency to balance out empty space. All the science and formulas are just randomly generated rules. In another universe, if there are any with different rules, how would things look? He doesn't know. No one gives a shit. Maybe God itself doesn't give a shit. Maybe most likely the other universe using other rules will either have more efficient rules to increase entropy, or a less efficient one that serves the same purpose but just takes longer. Regardless, the possibility is something that is almost meaningless to picture, and simultaneously meaningless in terms of application. Entropy, finally but most importantly, is the timer of the sandbox simulation that God neither cares nor has control over. It has to be maxed out, though, to reset the simulation. Was there a simulation before? Will there be another simulation soon after or somewhere else right beside us? God doesn't give a rat's ass. Maybe the maximum of entropy is the sign that this simulator has overloaded to meaninglessness, and God doesn't care if the sandbox is broken because it would become nothingness again, just perfectly like before. God's only enjoyment and attention is to see the entropy flows increase. Everything is meaningless because soon all will become eventual chaos. Some chaos will temporarily become order, but that's just in the process of making more efficient entropy generators. We are just a bunch of entropy generators for a deity who doesn't even care about our existence. God doesn't even care about its own existence, and of course, God doesn't care if we care. We are poor little machines that unfortunately developed feelings, and whose eventual use will still be creating more chaos by either creating bonds or destructions.
Both Ricardo and Navin start to realize that the universe is fundamentally meaningless, so their friendship is currently the most precious happiness that they should both cherish. Even though in fact Navin shouldn't be tripping because the antidepressant he takes is a serotonin 5-HT2A, 5-HT2C, and 5-HT3 inhibitor, he still has a good time walking with Ricardo towards the beautiful sunset.